Okay, so let's talk about the next steps that you need to take. And one thing I didn't say, I realized in that first video, because I just watched it, I was like, oh, yeah, I could have talked about that. I want to say, welcome to my home. I teach online. I've been teaching online way before COVID. So now it's just, I love teaching online. I know not everyone does. So the thing I would say to you before I jump into the next steps, and really it is kind of logical, the next steps, is one of the things I highly recommend you do is reach out to me during my office hours. You don't even have to reach out to me, just come into my office hours. They're listed in the syllabus. And one of the ways you can help yourself prepare for these three big parts of the class, which is your development part, is to come in to my office hours and have conversation with me and get to know me a little bit, because that can make that process a little less intimidating. Students have a variety of experiences coming into those. The newer you are at coding, typically the more, I don't want to say challenging, exciting, anxiety, stress. That's not the goal, but sometimes that just is part of what happens. So, lean into the idea that even though we're online, it doesn't mean you can't reach out and do it before you actually have to, based on this on the course. Okay, now having said that, the part of the next steps that I want to talk about, and by the way, I just, as I told you, I just watched that video, the hello world, and now I'm going to hit next. Okay, and the next item is this one that I'm recording now. So the what you're going to need, I talked about the course required materials before. So this is a completely free system that is the very popular Git and GitHub. Okay, so let me just set this so you have it. Git versus Git. I'll say Git, which is version control on your local system, versus GitHub, which is where we push the code. And that's how you turn that code in. And let me just look at images so you have an idea, right? I'm trying to think of the best one. I used one the other day that I thought was pretty good for this. So let's use it again. Okay, so Git. So Git is installed on your local system. That's part of what's going to happen in the series of video following this, is you setting up your local dev environment. And what will happen is you'll code locally, and then you will push, and that's actually a Git command, that code to GitHub. Okay, so, oh, nice. Actually, you can do a little lens there. That's cool. So this is on your local system, Git. You push it to GitHub. Okay, but what we're going to start with is actually having you provide a GitHub username. If you already have one, just provide it to me. I'll show you in a minute. But if you don't, then you'll create that GitHub account. You'll create what's called repos out on GitHub, and then you'll clone them. Basically, clone is copy, but with a lot more stuff added. And then through authentication, you'll set it up so that when you code, you push that code out to GitHub. And that's how you and I share code with not just you and me directly through what's called your private repos, but also through a public repo with everybody in the class. So now I'm already on GitHub. Okay, I'm already there. But what you will do is go to GitHub, create an account. Even if they say, you can create a professional account that's paid, don't do that. You don't have to completely do a free account. And then, and I'll just show you, like I'm signed in, and my GitHub username, once I create it, now I don't care what your GitHub username is, I just need it. And so what you'll provide me is that GitHub username. Okay, and that's what I need from you when you actually submit. Ooh, my mouse is freaking out. I think I'm lagging a little bit. So that's when you start this assignment. You're going to give me your GitHub, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So that's first. Now, the second thing is kind of what I started with, which is I run a Discord server, and I've given you a link to the invite. Now, Discord is not required. It is just suggested for this class. And the thing I have to say, and I almost don't like saying this in the beginning, but I want to set this clear, is that Discord is really used for student to student communication. Now, I may be one of those folks out on Discord, and if I'm there and I see the question and I can answer it, I will. But it is very common, and I suspect you have experienced this, where you ask other students questions and you're just doing it instead of in a classroom, you're doing it in an online system. And I suspect many of you may have already heard of Discord. So I've been running a server for a couple of years, so there's quite a few people out there on it. I welcome you into it, but just know that if you want to speak to me directly, make sure you still use Canvas for that. But this is a real-time system, and here's a link to the invite. So let me just show you. I'm going to actually go ahead and open Discord just to give you a little preview of introduction to the server itself. So in this case, here's and it's called the FCC Web Dev, because that's the area I teach in. Some people from my other classes are already joining. So the first thing I would want you to understand is that I have these text channels, which all the students who have joined my server can see. So these are for my general population, prior students, other folks that have joined the server. But the first thing I'd want you to do is go to Code of Conduct, click up on here, and actually click into the Python Code of Conduct. Now, I used this Python Code of Conduct for my entire server, just as agreed upon ways that we all interact, that we be kind and courteous to others, welcome inclusive language, right? Respectful of all views. There's no bad questions. The worst question is the one you didn't ask, is what I generally say about that. So I want you to know we do have a code of conduct for the server. So when you get into the server, again, these are like in Python, this channel is actually used for students to ask questions. As a matter of fact, there's some students doing past where the Python class goes for the 100 days, and we're having discussion about that in there. And here's for my JavaScripts, for any JavaScript channel. Students that want to ask questions about JavaScript, Fresno City. So these are open channels. And let me actually increase this just a little bit so you can see it. Okay. So in this case, these are open that everyone can get to, but at the bottom, after voice channels, is current FCC students, okay? So you would want to be added to what's right now a limited, meaning we have to, or I have to add you into these channels, because these are only for the folks in this class, right? So this is a little more, I'm going to say exclusive, but just confined to the students in this class. That way there's not talk that doesn't really relate or might relate. So what you want to do is if you get onto the server, you'll go into the start here, and then you'll just ask me to add you into the channel for the class that you're in, and I will do that. And for this class, it'd be CIT95. So just ask me, and then I'll add you, and then you will see that channel show up once you get added. So just to be clear, this is because there are definitely times where, let me just come back here, where students, like I'm an early morning person. I get up early, I go to the gym, I sit down and I work. I shut off work normal times between 5 and 6. And then after that, I'm offline. I typically turn all my notifications off. And there may be times I've noticed many students work later than me, which is totally cool. But I want to give you a way to ask questions. There is a tutor for Python as well. His name's Aaron. He's awesome. He'll be hanging out on the server as well. So utilize this system to its best ability. And if you have found you were a little nervous about posing questions, I can tell you that my hope was that you won't feel, you may feel nervous, but you won't let it stop you, because this is a great way to connect with your fellow classmates. Okay. Now, I think I've said everything I needed to do. What you want to do here is come into here and just give me that GitHub username, whatever that is for you. Again, it won't be maybe clear as my first name and last name, and then, or you could put it in comments, it doesn't matter. And then you hit submit. So as soon as you submit that, you get that nice little, yeah, you did it, right? And then what happens, and I'm just going to go back to show you this, right? So now what happens is it opens up the next item. And these next item are view items. And this is really to help you work through getting your local dev environment set up. Okay? Now, I actually think I'm going to end with this, but a couple of things. These videos were recorded last semester. I've given you the modifications just for like the folder name here and some other things, and I'll talk a little more about this extension for Python when you get to here. I haven't recorded this item yet, but here's what I want you to know is that when we start into the 100 days of code with Dr. Angela Wu, Yi, what she's going to use for the first part of the class is a website called Replit, REPIT. Now, I recommend you set up your local dev environment now. But if you find when going through this, you've had challenges, I allow students for day one and day two, which is the first assignment in the first week and the second assignment in the second week. Yeah, day one and day two, to use that system. Just know that it's going to be a little more work because you're going to have to still copy and paste stuff into our course repo. Okay, I'll have a little video showing that, but what I recommend and why I hope you're watching this early is you can get through this process of setting up your local dev environment, because the students who just finished that 9 week, I think 3 of them who actually ended up using the Replit for the first couple of days said afterwards they wish they would have set up their local environment. But I also don't want to put up barriers to you getting work done, but get help if you're having challenges with the series of videos that you're about to do. Okay? Hopefully that's clear. You can ask me if you have any questions. So now your job is to look through these videos, see if you can set up your local. And by the way, the first video I show, once you submit the username, there's a step I have to do. So you can't actually do it until I do that step. I'm going into break. I'll check as time allows, because I don't want to be the lag to you moving on as well. But just know I'm generally on vacation and there might be a lag a little bit, depending on when you've done it. But you may not be here till later, so who knows when that will be. Anyway, hope that's clear.